Well, hello, avid readers. I am super excited because I have my most amazing guest I've ever had on this podcast. And I say that because he's one of my kids. I won't say he's my favorite, although maybe he is. We'll just leave it at that. No. But first of all, welcome, Nathan Goyer. Why don't you start by telling us, Nathan, a little bit about yourself?
Hi, like my mother said, my name is Nathan Goyer. I am an author. Unsurprisingly, being raised by an author gave me a good opportunity to learn how to write as I grew up, which I am finally starting to use. I am also I'm just a creative in general. I like making things. I have I work and make a video game that I made by myself, and I also work for a tiny little company called Little Rocket. So I do that as well. So lots of creative things that I do all the time.
Nathan, did you? I know you have a mom who's an author. Did you ever think it's something you wanted to pursue, or was it just naturally something that you did, just creating stories?
I felt like it was something I wanted to do. Uh, you know, as you know, I've been writing ever since I was really little. I had classic stories like the fraud before Christmas. I wrote when I was little because I was like, oh, Santa Claus isn't real. I need to write a book about it. So I wrote that when I was little, and wrote other books, some that never made it to the light of day. Uh, but yeah, I would say I've always wanted to write.
And I think you've always been creative. So when your friends came over, um, tell us about the Beanie Babies, Nathan. See, I have all these inside stories I can pull out of him.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, the Beanie Babies. You guys might remember that from the late '90s with the big McDonald's craze, and I personally like those more than action figures because action figures you can't bend their limbs, but Beanie Babies you can. So me and my friends we would play with those instead, and we would still have action adventure stories. And I think one part she might be thinking about specifically is one time I was planning to go to my friend's house for I think 4 or 5 days. My parents were going out of town. And so I crafted an entire story that I was going to have each day. And my friends were so excited to be a part of it. And we went through the whole story over the course of the 4 or 5 days, and with the epic battle against the evil tyrant. And so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I've been crafting stories and for my whole life basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think you were like 7 or 8, and they would come over, and you just pick up at the story wherever it left off, and they knew exactly where the story left off, you know where the story left off, and you just have more adventures with your Beanie Babies, and so I think definitely that story, gene was in there, and then I know, you for a season, you're like, "I wanna write novels," and you wrote your own novel, so even before Breath of Bones. You wrote a novel, so tell us a little bit about that, and then we're gonna get to Breath of Bones.
Yeah, so I did write a novel, Bath, City of Shadows. Not currently available right now. It was one of the things where I wrote it, and it was my first time writing. I learned a lot during the writing process, but it was still a bit rough around the edges. So, but I did finish that book, and that was before Breath of Bones.
Yeah, okay, so I posted on Facebook, and I asked, "What do you want me to ask Nathan?" And they're excellent questions, so we're just gonna go through these. So the first one, is from Shelley Littleton, and she said, "Whose idea was it to write a book together?"
Yeah, I would say it was Mom's idea to write a book together first. I'd been pushing her to write speculative fiction for a while. Didn't really think that she would want to co-author a book like that, but she was the one that came up and she's like, Nathan, we need to we need to write a story about the golem in World War II. And so it kind of went on from there, but it was initially her idea.
Yes. So, um, backtracking a little bit, we had gone to Makers, and I basically went because I'm like, I want to support Nathan. I don't really write speculative fiction, but it'll be super fun. I had met some of the people from Makers the previous summer. Or maybe the previous spring, so I think we just a couple months earlier from when the conference was, and I'm like, "We could go, this'll be great," and then I went, I'm like, "What is this?" Because they were so excited about writing, all this creative people, a lot of ideas, and I think a little bit different in the speculative genre is that a lot of the other writers conferences I'd been at, people are like, "Oh, is the editor gonna be, like my stuff, not like my stuff? Oh, am I doing laying out the chapters right?" And the speculative fiction authors, most of them are younger, so the majority of the people at the conferences are under 40. They love ideas, they love sharing ideas, they love getting excited about each other's ideas, and I was like, "What is this?" It was such a different vibe, not just because of speculative fiction, but just how they weren't so worried about, and there's still people worried about their pitches or whatever, but they're just so excited about sharing ideas and getting excited about other people's ideas. I was like, "I love this." And so it was after that and saying, "Huh, maybe maybe I could write a speculative fiction idea." And then I was sweeping and was by the bookshelf where I saw these books that I have a Prague and the Golem, and I went, "Oh, Nathan." I don't even know what you were doing at the time, Nathan, but you were sitting in my living room and I like rushed in there, like, "We should do this." And you're like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe." And I will have to say that Nathan and probably his brother Corey too are my most even keeled kids. Like they're pretty mellow all around, like mellow people. And so I'm like, "Nathan." He's like, "Yeah, okay. Huh, that might be interesting." I'm like, "Come on, Nathan, like jump up and jump out of the couch and I don't get excited." But yeah.
Well, add there, you said people not too worried about their pitches at realm makers. I'd say they are worried for pitches with a very particular person there at realm makers, Steve Lobby. I know there's quite a few of them that are, very very nervous going against the Dream Crusher, as he's often called.
Yes, and so that's who we actually wrote the book for was the dream crusher. He's the one that accepted our idea, so he did not crush our dreams, Nathan.
He did not.
Yeah, okay, so let's go back to the questions. I could ask my own questions, but we're gonna honor these people who wrote in these questions. Okay. So tying off of that, Megan Carson asked, "How long did it take you both from start to finish?" And she said, like from the moment your son said, "Hey, I got an idea, I want to write a book," until the day you opened the box filled with awesome looking books. So we already know that I was the one that like, "Hey, Nathan, do you want to
Yep.
write a book?" But from the question, so how long did it take us from like the start of the idea to holding the finished book in our hands?
I would say from that moment, it's been a couple of years now. I mean, we had a
Mhm.
couple of realm makers since even we first had that idea. So yeah, we've been to two. Isn't that right? We've been to two realm makers since we had that idea.
Right. So I
Coming
would
on
say
the
it was
third,
March of 2022
2022. That sounds right.
because I pitched it to him because I was able to see Steve Lobby at Mount Herman
Hmm.
March of or the beginning of April 2022, and uh, then we sent him an idea, and by Realm Makers, I think we knew he was interested in it,
Yeah.
and then we got the contract, and then we wrote it. And so last year at Realm Makers 2023, that's when we have a surprise. We won't tell you what he told us at that conference because that's going to answer another question. And
Yeah.
then that's we'll just leave it at that until we answer the next question. So yeah, 2022. So it's been about 2 years, just
Yep.
a little over 2 years from the time that I first got the idea when I was sweeping to us holding the hardcover. And then for those who are on watching on video, the hardcover of Breath of Bones in our hands.
Hmm.
So, all right. So good question. All right, I'm gonna go to my list. Um, okay. Next question. Pam Farrell asked, "How did you divide up all the tasks?"
Well, it's interesting. For Breath of Bones, what we basically did is we didn't really have like, oh, divide up. 'Cause that's how I initially thought it was going to be. Like, oh wow, right, one chapter, then she'll write the next chapter, then we'll write the next chapter. I thought it would be something like that. It didn't end up working that way at all. We are both. I feel like in a lot of ways we are both kind of like how would you say, like windfall kind of people. Like we get our wind of inspiration. We'll write a whole bunch all at once. So like mom will find a bunch of time, write like 10 different scenes and start them.
It's so true.
And then
Basically start 10 different scenes. Yeah.
yeah, start 10 different scenes, and then I'll come in and do the same thing. And I usually write more full chapters rather than scenes. I'll come in write like 2 chapters in a day or something like that. So it was more like when we found the time, we would write a whole bunch. And then for Breath of Bones, it's more like I wrote most of the main first draft, and then mom came through and edited a whole ton, and then I came in through and edited, and then she came through again and edited, and that's before we ever sent it to the editor.
Mhm.
So it's more like that.
Yeah, and I think definitely with that book, we were still trying to find the style, which I don't wanna go too much because I'm gonna read the next question because I think that was one of the questions. Um, Carol Barber said, "Whose voice was it written in, and who made the final edits?" So I think we could kinda answer that voice part.
Yeah. Um, I would say that's like something that kind of like I struggled with a little bit because it's like, oh, I wrote it and I felt like it was me, and then mom would come through and change it, and it didn't quite sound like me anymore. But I would say it sounds more like us. So I wouldn't say
Mhm.
it's just one of our voices. I feel like there's a lot of both of us in there and our different writing styles. And people who have read a lot of um, my mother's book, I'm sure they'll notice the parts where she had more influence. And just like my brother Corey said, because I wrote the prologue in Breath of Bones, and I remember Corey was reading it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I can tell you wrote you wrote the prologue. This sounds like your writing style," because he's read a lot of my writing before. So I would say there's a lot of both of us in there. It's not just one or the other's voice.
Yeah, and I would say the stuff that I edited on yours, because it said who had the final edits. I mean, I think had the final read through before we sent it into the publisher, but I was doing more adding setting and descriptions because I've studied a lot of it's set in World War II. It's set in Prague in 1942. So I had a lot of that sense of things. We've been to Prague numerous times, but I've researched a little bit more. So I would be adding setting, scene, description, and then some character emotion type of stuff, which added words. Some chapters it would not double it, but it would add quite a bit of words. And
Yeah,
so it wasn't like I was completely rewriting. I wasn't rewriting really. I was
yeah,
layering. I was layering stuff in there. So people that pick up my like historical fiction, um, they see the same like level of the details and that sort of thing.
I will say that's something I've gotten better about as we've been writing together. But there were times in Death of Bones, I'll admit it, where I just get to a spot and it's like leave a note for mom, insert history here, because I did not know what was going on at that time. I've been learning a lot since then, but I did that a few times.
Yep, and plus that you knew that I knew certain things, so it'd be easy for me to add that in there. And
Yeah.
also we both kinda are procrastinators, and so it's like pushing it to the end, and, I'm like, "Nathan, just keep writing forward. I'll come and fill in the details. You just keep getting so we have at least all the chapters on the page." So
hmm
you kinda went ahead and did that. Okay, so Kathy Smith asked, "How do you work out different opinions?"
Well, at least from my perspective, I would say is I did my best that if she wanted something in there or suggested, I would try and work it in. So sometimes I would push back and then be like, no, 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 it's fine. We can do it anyways. So I feel like pretty much. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like anytime you had something you wanted in there, it would end up in there in some way. And even a lot of the stuff, like she had those half-written scenes that she would have in there. I would always try and like rework those in. Sometimes even work those into previous scenes and add that stuff in or expand upon that. So I don't really feel like there's that much differing of opinion on for what should be in the story. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say at the beginning, it wasn't really differing opinion. We were trying to figure out how much history, how much
Hmm.
steampunk, because it's I think actually Breath of Bones is a World War II um historical fantasy or historical science fiction. I don't know which way it is, but it has steampunk in it. So there's true history,
Hmm.
there's steampunk and fantasy elements. So it's all around. In fact, someone's like, "You guys created a new genre." I'm like, "I don't know of any other books like that, but we'll take it."
Me either. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fun. So I wouldn't say there's difference of opinions, or there's sometimes when I wanted to, at least at the beginning, I'm like, I don't know if we need that much steampunk. Let's just like put light steampunk in there. But then you
Hmm.
would you would add some really cool elements. I'm like, oh, I actually like this. Okay, let's put more in there. So it was kind of like as we were both trying to figure it out, and we kinda hit a happy medium of my historical fiction readers, I think will enjoy it,
Hmm.
or I have some that like read my mysteries or that sort of thing because there's those elements in it, and then people that love science fiction or steampunk or fantasy type novels, speculative fiction will like it too. So, I think it's a nice happy medium, at least I think so. At least, and I think the editors and some of the endorsements we've got, which leads to the next question. Will there be another collaboration in the future after Breath of Bones?
Essay.
You can't use the
Okay. Okay.
title. You can't use
Yeah.
any titles, but you can say,
Yeah. So we do have book two for Breath of Bones is actually already written the first draft. So we are already doing that. We have a lot more
Mhm,
stories of the Clockwork Chronicles yet to come.
and the book 2 is turned in, and we have a contract for book 3 also. You've heard it here, folks. We're
Yep.
gonna be doing a 3-book series, which is super exciting, and I would say, we can't say too much, but there is some things that, I thought we were gonna keep in book th save for book 3 that we just ended up putting in book
Hmm.
2 because it was so cool, like, so cool, and then there's some things that I thought we were gonna have in book 2 that we're saving for book 3 and that I'm super excited about, set in Prague and some different things from Prague history that are tied in. So, we learned parts of history that I had never known before. Um, I'll just add this one little thing. Book 2 includes scenes in Italy, and there was parts of I feel like I fully understand, not fully understand. I and better understand what was happening in Italy during World War II more than I ever have after writing book 2.
And I would say if uh, people were to try and guess for book two specifically, what is real historical stuff and what is the fantasy stuff made up, I bet they would get a lot wrong. There was
I
some
know.
crazy stuff that happened during World War II.
There was like if this wasn't real, I don't think we could put all of this in a book because it would just be too far-fetched.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see. We haven't received the editor's feedback yet, so I'm super excited to hear what the editor thinks about that. And of course, now we kind of know roughly what's going to be in book 3. We haven't plotted the whole thing out, but we just love this. We love the mix of history and steampunk, and well, no, who knows? Maybe there'll be more that comes after that. We'll see. Okay, going back to our questions. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, so um, okay, how long did it take? Hold on. I wanna make sure I'm not missing anything most important. Divide up all the tasks, his idea, difference in opinion. Oh, okay. We just have 2 more questions, Nathan. Ready?
All right.
Does she still make you eat all your vegetables?
Um, I will say she definitely pushes me to more a lot now. If anyone brings anything, sweet or sugary in the house, they're like, "No, it's poison. Get that out of my house."
I feel
So
bad. Poor Jacob, one of
yeah,
Nathan's friends. Nathan wasn't feeling well, and he happened to be over our house, and Jacob brought him cookies. And I'm literally like, Jacob, do you know that sugar suppresses the immune system? So by bringing all those cookies, you're actually trying to kill Nathan. I hope he knew I was joking, but not joking. Like,
I think you knew you were joking. I'm pretty sure. I'm
yeah.
50% sure.
Yeah. So do I make you eat your vegetables? I don't make you.
No, you just highly encourage it.
I just highly encourage you to eat your
It
vegetables.
also helps, say for the record, that you make delicious vegetables.
Oh,
Like,
good.
yeah, so
Yeah, and so
there.
we've been on a health kick here. This is a side note, Stephen Smith, to your question. But I've lost 87 pounds. My husband's lost like 67 pounds. Nathan, you've also been on a health journey.
Yeah. Bit different one, but a health journey all the same. I've lost 54 pounds now.
54 pounds. So we're getting healthy around the Goyer house.
Hmm.
Okay, well, last question from Stephen, and then I have a couple more of my own. How can you keep up with someone as busy as her?
Well, I think we're both very busy. I mean, during the time of writing these books, I was working a day job and also working for Little Rocket, the video game company. So it was we were both trying to find any spare moment we could to write. So
Yeah.
it was kind of a balancing act that we both had to deal with.
And also, guys, Nathan has just as many book ideas as I do. And I'm not joking. So he comes up with stuff all the time. I'm like, that sounds amazing. But we have to finish this book first, Nathan. He's like, yes, of
Yeah,
course. And then like 2 days later, he's like, oh, what if there's a book about this? I'm like, that sounds amazing. But we need to finish this book first, Nathan.
yeah. This is taking
So
priority. This is
yeah.
taking priority right now.
Yeah. So I know you think that I'm a unicorn, but Nathan is a junior unicorn when it comes to all the ideas that just rush in because there's a lot of them.
Hmm.
All right. So now that you have, the book is here. We just did an unboxing. We have the hardcover. What is it like knowing that this book is done and that people are ordering it on Amazon or christianbook.com or all the places? Like, how does that make you feel?
I mean, it's exciting. It's very exciting. I've written just one book before, and didn't get too much traction, and wasn't. Uh, it was a bit rough around the edges. It wasn't. I still had a lot to learn, and a lot of that is dealing with stuff like this and marketing and talking and getting my name out there. So this has been really exciting, seeing how much support there's been for Breath of Bones and how many people are willing to reach out. So it's been super fun. I've liked it a lot.
Yeah. So if you could see yourself, let's say 20 years in the future, what would be like your ideal thing when it came to creativity and writing?
But just like where I would hope to be,
Yeah,
or
where you would hope to be.
yeah, I feel like the ultimate dream would be me and Corey have talked about wanting to have a creative company at some point, which would be super fun, and just having just being able to do that full time, not needing a day job to suck a lot of my hours away to live. Just have putting out books, putting out card games, video games, just all sorts of creative things, and all hopefully a lot of them to be meshing, have books
Mhm.
come out and then having video games about the books and having card games about the same story and characters. I think that would be the dream what I'd hope for 20 years from now.
And board games.
Yeah, board games, yeah, card games, board games, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to talk about board games for a little minute because our family, we love books. We love like being together as a family. We love family trips. We love doing that. We love card games and board games. That's
Mhm.
something, especially during the holidays when my daughter's in town, like, it's every night. Like, it's
Yeah,
every night board
we try
games.
every night.
So, what are some of your favorite board games?
Some of my favorites, I would say definitely Dominion is really high up there. It's just a classic. There's so many different ways you can play it. So many ways, we've had so many expansions and there's so many different combination cards that we have not played with. So there's still
Whose
plenty
games
more
are
to
those,
game.
Nathan? Whose games are those Dominion boxes of expansions?
They're yours. Yeah.
I bought Dominion for Nathan, I don't know, one of the birthday or Christmas or something, and then I loved it so much, I bought, like, every expansion for it. It's super fun card game.
Yeah. And then another one of my favorites is Everdale. It's a really good one. It's
Mhm.
kind of like Dominion. You're buying cards and stuff like that, except instead of villages or knights or ogres as your cards, they're instead little cute animals that
Mhm.
have little jobs in their little villages. So that one is that's a fun one as well.
Yeah. Okay, so what about Century Golem?
Yeah, Century Golem Edition. Century is already a fun game. Then they have the Golem Edition with all the cool Golem art. That is that's definitely a good one too.
Yeah, and so I would say my husband plays less games than I do. I'm the one that's always like, honey, you watch all the kids so I can play the board games with the older kids." But he will play Century Golem Edition. He
Well,
does like that, and he likes the card game Mantis, which is super easy.
I would say yeah, Century Golem Edition is a great game. With young kids or people that don't speak English very well because it's all just colors. There's no words on any of the cards. You trade the blue gems for the pink gems and the green gems for a bunch of yellow gems. So it's a very easy one to learn and get used to.
Yeah. Okay. So, we always wrap it up with this question. What is a Christian novel that you've enjoyed? It could be something you've read recently, it could be a favorite from the past, but what's something that you've enjoyed?
Well, recently I read Drawn in Ash. That was a really good one. I liked it a lot. Um, well, I have a review for it on my YouTube channel if you want to see all of my thoughts about it. And then what I've brought up before in different interviews, but the one that I always think back to is the Door Within. That series was like the first, other than Narnia, of course, that was the first Christian kind of novel I read that was fantasy with a strong Christian message. And I was shocked. I was like, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that was allowed. So that was definitely one of my favorites. It's one I think
Yep,
about a lot.
yep, and we got to meet him, Wayne Thomas Batson
Hmm.
at one of the Realm Makers, so
At Railmakers, yeah, he was teaching the team track.
yeah,
He's super nice guy.
yeah. Okay, so where can people go to find information about Breath of Bones or find information about you?
Well, Breath of Bones, you can go to either mine or Tricia's Instagram or triciagoyer.com. Would probably be the best places to find out information about Breath of Bones. For me, you can go to my Instagram or my YouTube channel, Goyer Forge.
Goyer Forge, and we're gonna have all the links in the show notes. Also, anywhere books are sold, christianbook.com, amazon.com. Ask your library to order a copy. That always helps authors. Okay, so Nathan, thank you for being here. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
So stay tuned that the golem isn't the only mythical thing that you will find in the Clockwork Chronicles, and there is a lot more to see and discover. So stay tuned.
Dun dun dun, book
Dun, dun,
two. All
dun.
right, thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.